Hello, dear children. Good morning. Have a nice day. Today I am going to teach you the poem The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost. But before we go in the poem, I want to start this lecture with a beautiful thought. The future depends on what you do today. It's true. All our dreams can only come true if we do something about them in the present. And if we are going to waste our present, there will be nothing in the future. Okay? So now we will go to the poem. But again, before we start analyzing the poem, let's recite the poem. Okay? Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both. And be one traveller, long I stood, and looked down one as far as I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear. Though as for that, the passing there had warned them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day. Yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh. Somewhere ages and ages hence, two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less travelled by. And that has made all the difference. The poem is written by Robert Frost. Let's know something about the author. Robert Lee Frost, commonly known as Robert Frost, was born in the year 1874 on 26th March in San Francisco. Now, some of his famous works include Mending Wall, Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening, A Boy's Will, Mountain Interval, and so on. He is an American poet who writes simply but insightfully about all the common, ordinary experiences. Okay, so now we will move towards our poem. Now, Robert Frost in this poem tells us about the struggle an individual faces while he or she is making some decisions in life. When he's deciding something to do, okay, the person in this poem has to decide whether to follow the crowd or to travel by the road. And Robert Frost, who is much facing this dilemma. Now, what do you mean by dilemma? It is a situation in which a difficult choice has to be made. Choice has to be taken between two or more alternatives. Means there are many alternatives and you have to choose one of that. Okay, so that situation is known as a dilemma. So Robert Frost, who is much facing this type of situation, in this particular poem chooses the road not taken by many people. Okay, he has taken the road where people has not traveled. He also wonders about the road that he had not taken, that he thinks about the choice, and then he left the one road which he did not take for another time. And he thinks that he would probably come back and take that road. He struggles and makes the choice between the two roads. Now just analyze the poem, what he actually means by the road not taken. Here the narrator of this poem is the poet himself, that is Robert Frost. And he is probably talking about an event or an incident of his life where he stood in some of the situation where he stand in between two things, and he's comparing his life with a wood in this poem, a yellow wood. He says he was standing at a place where two roads diverged in a yellow wood. Now again new word is there, diverged. What do you mean by diverged? Diverged means one road divided into two different roads. So this poet, he is standing at a place where he can see two roads, they are dividing each other. So he had to choose one of the roads and move on that particular road. Now he is little confused. Which road I have to choose? There are two roads. Okay. The woods are yellow which means that it has probably fall. Fall here means the autumn season. Okay? And that is why the leaves have changed their color. The poet, as human nature, we all know, wants to go down both the roads at once. At one time, he wants to travel on the both road. He does not want to miss this opportunity. But we know humanly it's not possible. It's impossible to walk down the two roads at the same time. If I ask you, students, is it able for you to travel at one time on the two roads? No, it is impossible. So he has to choose between the two roads, any one of the road. He was sorry that he couldn't travel both the roads at the same time. Now, as I said you, human nature, we want everything at the same time, which is not possible. The poet really wants to go down both of the roads and is thinking hard about his choice. He is struggling because he wants to go down both the road. He looked down as far as he could till he bent away in the undergrowth, which means he was trying to choose which is the better road among the two. So he looked down one road, then he looked down the other road till he see. I could see the undergrowth, means till the roads bent and he couldn't see anymore. The other road was just as fair and perhaps presented a better claim. That is, according to the poet, the other road which was just as fair as the first road. He says it presented a better claim. There were more opportunities on that road. Second road was grassy, less traveled by the travelers, and there were a lot of leaves on that road. And it seemed that nobody has till now traveled over, or very less people has traveled on that road. And that road, he says, wanted people to travel on it, on that road. Here, where, this word has appeared in the poem. What do you mean by where? Where means to travel. Okay, the road was demanding the people to travel on. Got it? The poet had to make a choice and he resolved the dilemma. Now, since he was in a mental dilemma, he was struggling which road he would choose between the two because both of the roads presented some kind of opportunities for the poet. But then he had to choose between the two. He chose second road. Got it? Which road he chose? He chose the second road and kept the first for another day. He decided finally and chose to go on the second road. And he didn't leave the first road completely. He said to himself that I will come back sometime, after some time, and travel that first road too. Okay? He promised himself only that today I am selecting this first road. So the remaining road which is left, someday afterwards I will come and travel that road also. Okay, but at the same time he had a doubt that he would never get a chance to travel on the first road because one road leads to another, which means if one opportunity is in your life, it will lead to another and it takes you to a different place altogether. And from there, it's impossible to come back to the point where you have started. And this point, he knew it. He doubted that he would ever be able to come back and again travel on the first road. But he still said that he will travel the first road some other time in his life. The choice had been made and it made all the difference in the life. So he had finally chosen between the two roads. And he says that choosing the second road had made all the differences in his life. It was very difficult to say whether the choice was right or wrong, whether he has chosen the right path, where he has chosen the road with more opportunities for him in his life. It was very difficult for the poet to tell at that time because he had to choose between one of the two. Now, this is a question that each one of us should ask ourselves because in everybody's life there is a moment, there is a time when we decide between two things. Sometimes it gets very difficult to decide between two things. Many of us, in fact, most of us, agree that we could like to choose the most travel road because we are more likely to know what the outcome is. We know because people have traveled that road, and we also come to know what they have faced on that particular road. The outcome is quite obvious. But taking the more challenging way is difficult for an average person, because for an average person it is very difficult to take a road which most of the people had not taken, because it is a challenge for him, and everybody does not take challenges. But the poet probably decided to take the challenging one. He proposed to take the road which is not taken by anyone. That is why he titled the poem A Road Not Taken. Now, not taken here is very important because he took that road, and he encourages the other people also to take the road which is not taken by masses in general. Initially, the poet depicted the uncertainty and the mental suffering of many choices. What is that? He was uncertain to go on the second road or the first road, and he was struggling mentally, as I said. You can also see that in line number 3 of the poem when he says, "Be one traveler, long I stood. I am only one traveler. I stood there for a long time, and being one traveler, I have to decide, choose only one road, because I cannot go on both of the roads at the same time." Which means he is struggling in his mind and trying to make the decision. After comparing, then he compares the two roads. He tells himself, or he convinces himself only, that the second road has more opportunity. That is what he says in line number 13. He says, "I took the second road and kept the first for another day. I chose the second road with lots of opportunities, and the first one kept it for another time." However, he knew there was no chance to return. He knew that, and that is why he says in line number 15 of the poem, "I doubted if I should ever come back." Actually, he knew it. He did not doubt. He knew that this one road will lead to another, and that road will lead him to altogether a different place where it will be very much difficult, or it will make him impossible to come back to where he started. He knew all this. So he says, "I doubted if I should ever come back." The poet also knew, or know, because he is a human being. He knew that he had only one life and would like to lead a different one. So he didn't want to go on a road where different people has traveled. He wanted to do something different in his life from the other people. He wanted to take life as a challenge. He wanted to take this challenge as an extraordinary person. He wanted to explore more opportunities in his life. He wanted to be more different from the general masses. Gradually, he gained confidence in his choice. After settling down on the second road, he was confident that he made the right decision. At the end of the poem, he urged and encouraged that people should also try something new. They should not run always on the old things. They should create themselves, okay, instead of following others. They should do their own things. They should not follow or compare with others. He not only chose the road for himself, but he also encouraged the people that they should also try something more challenging in their lives, something more exciting, something more adventurous, which at the beginning may seem to be difficult. Yes, we will face many of the difficulties, but it will seem to be very nice situation in the end. For some people, it may seem to be difficult who don't want to accept the challenge, but as he says in the poem, that has made all the differences in his life, that will make different for others as well. That is why he says, "I took the one less traveled road," okay, which was not traveled by most of the people. And this decision of traveling on a road which was not traveled by people has made all the differences. Wherever he reached in his life, whatever he achieved in his life, the success, the fame, the popularity, he says the difference was made because he decided to choose the second road, which was a challenging but full of opportunities. So in this poem, Frost was too wise to be absolute. He never denied every possibility. He never said that the first road was not as challenging, but he said the second road was more challenging. He has not made an absolute comparison between the two roads. As if you remember the first lines of the poem, he says that both roads equally lay that morning, which means the two roads presented the same picture, almost the same picture. He has not been so much absolute. Balancing each choice, he made his proposal but still left room for readers to have their final say. This has been very wise, very wise. Balancing the two choices, he says choice number one or road number one was not a bad choice, but then the second one he chose and convinced himself that he has taken the right one, had more opportunities. But at the end, when he says, I shall be telling this with a sigh. Now, here he has left the final word of the readers. He has left their final say to the readers to decide, because the sigh here is not clear. It's a sigh of relief, or it's a sigh of contentment or satisfaction. He says sigh, it could be sigh of relief, or it could be of satisfaction, or it could be a sigh of grief. Whether he has reached where he wanted to or not, he has left it open for discussion and for readers to have their final say. Now we will describe the poem. The poem is autobiographical poem. These are the concepts and scales in the poem. Now, what do you mean by autobiographical poem? An autobiographical, as the name itself suggests, a poem about the person's life. Here, Robert Frost has compared his life or an incident of his life with a wood, with a forest. The road depicts the choices, and it's also about dilemma, about some certain situation, about making choices. The whole poem is about mental struggle of the poet, where he is struggling about making a choice between a two road. He is in a dilemma, in a fix. He does not know which road to choose, but finally decides to choose the second one. Now, some of the important poetic devices also we are going to revise in this poem. So, we will see those poetic devices. The first is symbolism. Now, what do you mean by it? Symbolism, it is use of symbols. The symbol here, one symbol that has been used here is the wood. Okay. Now here wood represents the life, as I said, and the two roads represent the choices. So got it? Wood, it represents the life, and the two roads represent the choices that all of us at the same point of life has to make, and that is symbolism. Through these symbols, he is actually conversing a message about life, about making choices in life. Okay. Now, second we will go imagery. Now he's talking about woods, talking about leaves that change their color and become golden, brown or yellow. He's talking about two roads covered with grass, covered with leaves. He's also talking about forest. So imagery he has created throughout the poem. Next we'll see metaphor. Now in this poem, the poem full it is a metaphor. And what is metaphor, children? It is a comparison. I'll repeat, it is a comparison which is made throughout the poem. Actually, the whole poem is a metaphor. The metaphor is not made in a single line or a single verse. It is throughout the poem. Robert Frost here is comparing woods and roads with life and choices, so that it is a metaphor. Okay. So finally, What we understood from this poem? It is that the poet Robert Frost tells us about the struggle an individual faces while he or she makes decision in his life. He has quoted examples, incidents from his own life to make us understand that in our lives also we might face some difficulty, some challenges, but we have to win those challenges because those challenges make difference in our life. It will mold our life. Got it? Now we will have a short and quick recap of the poem by judging ourselves how much we understood by a small assignment of MCQ. So ready? Here we go. The first MCQ. Who is the poet of this poem? I repeat, who is the poet of this poem? James, William James, William Wordsworth, or Robert Frost? You have to find out the correct answer. Number 2. What does the poem speak about? About the plight of roads, about the people, about two roads, about the choices made by the people. Okay, what does the poem speak about? Number 3, what do the road signify in the poem? The path or choice that was left or was not chosen to tread, the pathway on the roadside, or road with two turns. Again, you have to search the correct answer. Okay, we'll move to number 4. Which thing decides a person's future according to this poem? Whether it is the path one chooses to walk, the path one leaves behind, the regrets, or the success. Okay, which thing decides a person's future according to this poem? The poem written by Robert Frost. Number 5. What is the message of this poem? Be wise while choosing and taking decisions. Two roads are confusing. Road is nothing but a pathway. Or all above the options are correct. You have to find out the again correct answer. Which is the correct answer? What is the message of this poem? Whether it will be wise while choosing and taking decision, two roads are confusing, road is nothing but a pathway, or all these three options are right. You have to find out the correct answer. Okay, we'll go to number 6. Why is the poet asking to be wise while choosing a pathway? Option number 1, because there is no going back option. Option number 2, because it is the only one road. Option number 3, because it is one-sided road. And option number 4, none above all the options. Okay, so we have to again go through it very nicely. The question is very nice. Why is the poet asking to be wise while choosing a pathway? Why? Okay, you have to find out the correct option. Got it? We'll move to the 7th number. What does diverge means here? Okay, what does diverge means? To be separated and taking a different turn, to be torn, to break, or all above the options. Okay, what does diverge mean? Now number 8, why was the poet able to travel one road only? Yes, why he was able to travel only one road? Why? Because he had to walk alone, because he had no vehicle. That's why he was walking alone on the road or traveling one on the road. He not had the vehicle, or because he was one person, or all the above options. Okay, you have to find out the correct answer. Why was the poet able to travel one road only? Okay, then we'll go to 9th question. What does yellow woods mean here? What does yellow woods mean in the poem? Falling leaves, forest with yellow leaves in the autumn season, wood yellow in color, or none of the above option. Okay, What does yellow woods mean here? So these were the MCQs. We have to just storm our brain and find out the correct options, and we will understand that we had got through the poem nicely or not. Okay? You can see some new words on the screen. We will go through that. First, diverged. What do you mean by diverged? Separated and took a different direction. Okay? Separated and took a different direction. Undergrowth. What do you mean by undergrowth? Dense growth of plants and bushes. Dense growth of plants and bushes. Wanted were. What do you mean by wanted were? Had not been used. Something which is not used. It is known as wanted were. Next is hence. Here in the future. Hence means here in the future. Thinking about the poem, we'll go to the question answers. Number 1. Where does the traveler find himself? What problem does he face? Answer. The traveler finds himself in the yellow woods at a point where the road forks into two. The problem that he faces is that he cannot decide which road to take to continue his journey, since it is not possible for him to travel both roads at the same time. Second, discuss what these phrases mean to you. A yellow wood, it was grassy and wanted where? The passing there, leaves no step had trodden black. How way leads on to way. Now we'll go to the answer. Yellow wood symbolizes the autumn season. Autumn corresponds with old age. The poet could be symbolically talking about the later stages of life. Second phrase tells us it conveys that the road was full of grass and nobody has used that road. It was a smooth road which had not worn out. The third phrase tells that the use of the path by passer-by, the person who is going from that road. Okay, the person who are passing through the road. And the number fourth phrase tells us that the leaves had not changed their color and turned black because of less people stepping on them. It could represent a path, maybe, or may have never taken in life for the fear of uncertainty. Fifth phrase tells us how certain decisions one makes in his life could pave the way for many other decisions. Okay, now we'll go to the third question. Is there any differences between the two roads as the poet describes them? We have to find out. In stanzas 2 and 3 or in the last two lines of the poem. Okay, so we will go for the answer. Number 1. In stanza 2, the poet explains that the only difference between the two roads was that the road he took had the right to be chosen, the better claim, that is, okay, because it was covered with grass and looked as if it had not been used too much. Besides this difference, both roads had been equally worn down by passers-by traveling on them. And in stanza 3, the poet says that both the roads were equally covered with leaves and that no person had stepped on. Okay. Now we'll go to the second answer. In the last two lines of the poem, the poet says that there is a difference between the two roads because he took the road that was less traveled by other people and that made all the difference to his journey. Okay. Now we will move to the last question. Number 4. What do you think the last two lines of the poem mean? Looking back, does the poet regret his choice or accept it? Okay? Now answer for this. The last two lines of the poem mean the acceptance of reality. The poet made a choice and accepted the challenging path. He took an unexplored path in his life. He wanted to do something different in his life. So he chooses the less traveled road. No, he does not regret his choice. Okay? So these were the questions of your textbook exercise. Okay? So now we have completed the full poem. Explanation of the poem, a short assignment, new words, textbook exercise, all we have completed. Okay? You have to just copy down the answers very neat and tidy in your notebook. First you have to write the poem. Okay? And then the summary of the poem. After that, new words and then question answers. Okay? So here we come to the end of this lecture. Hope you must have understood this poem. So study well, complete the notes, complete the assignment. And one more thing I want to tell you that please come out with your doubts. Whatever doubts you are having, please share. Please communicate with your subject teacher. You should be full of doubts. Let the teacher do her work. She must clear your doubts. Okay? So please come up with lots of doubts and clear it. Got it? Okay? So thank you. Have a nice day.